So there's a section in Mind, Heart, and Words that deals with emotions. And I think it's an important section because a lot of times through our emotions, we kind of end up being enslaved the most, to things that we're looking to move away from. So uh, when we're trying to quietly and privately improve, a lot of times it's the emotions that sort of knock us out of owning something that we could possibly have. So in the emotion section of Mind, Heart, and Words, let me pull it up here. I say people are often quick to move towards experiences and teachings that only confirm what it is they want to feel. Today's guides and counselors become dealers and traders of groovy feelings. What precedes a feeling is an emotion. Numerous would-be teachers, lecturers, gurus, priests, priestesses, and whatever self-help experts are calling themselves these days neglect to provide genuine emotional development for those seeking help. They only cultivate a methodology of stroking the desired feelings of their patrons. Like I said earlier, it is our feelings that follow our emotions. These two terms are not interchangeable. Feelings are our personal response to the emotions that we experience. We may have a different feeling about a particular emotion. For example, we all respond to sadness differently. We also all may respond to the reality of loss with different sorts of feelings. We can even look at the achievement of goals and objectives to understand this at a deeper level. Some of us may set certain goals for ourselves and certain objectives to execute. When we go through the actual process that would lead us to achieve those particular goals and objectives, there is a feeling sometimes of struggle. That feeling of struggle is going to be a response to the emotions that are generated from the existent struggle. Those emotions may be fatigue, frustration, fulfillment, or many other sentiments. All right, I'm going to stop there for now. And of course, welcome all of you are coming. I'm sure more will also come in due time. But yeah, I wanted to build on emotions a little bit and just kind of provide some affirmation. And if you feel you want to help us out with emotions too, that's cool too. But one of the important things, like when we're dealing with emotions, is to consider the concept of sensitivity or being sensitive. You know, oftentimes we fail to neglect that, as I said in the book, that our emotions are coming from a thought. And what we're actually sensitive to is not the thought. We're sensitive to the feeling in our body. And the feelings in our body become our trap, you know, and they become our trap in different ways. Sometimes we struggle with emotions and we don't give ourselves permission to feel the way that we are allowed to feel from a particular emotion, or more specifically, sometimes we define ourselves by what it is that we feel. And we need to tell ourselves that the experience of what we're feeling doesn't control us. And it doesn't have to determine what the outlay of our day or our project or our year or whatever it is going to be, because whatever it is that we are feeling or even emoting, all of that is occurring inside of the body. And the process or the ability of becoming detached is detaching ourselves from identifying with the body, knowing that there's different components going on within the body. Sure, you will experience emotion, because the emotion is the energy in motion that becomes a matter, a hard thing, right? So even when we cry, right, there's something that happens in the body physically. There's a change, there's a chemical change even within the body from actually crying. But the crying itself is not us. The crying itself is a reaction to an emotion, which is a reaction to a thought. And sometimes we have these really extreme reactions because we have trouble uh, standing up to and owning the idea of being people who are having a human experience, right? You know, and some of us are very uncomfortable with the idea of having a human experience, so there's guilt behind when that rears its head. Why am I feeling this? And, you know, um, we start to explain it away, even if you will, you know. So one of the important things when we're seeking to affirm is that we always want to affirm that we align ourselves with freedom. That's number one. Always recognize that you are aligned with freedom, and your body is not your prison. You know, we can feel broken and at the same time be whole and be totally complete. You know, we can feel at times that we're hurt, but even with that hurt that we might feel, let me mute up my speakers. We can still feel that we can be loved, or we have established enough worth within ourselves to be loved, regardless of the fact that in this current moment, we're hurt, right? So there's an awareness that becomes the greatest, I'd say the greatest prize that we can offer to ourselves. And, that awareness is of what's needed in the moment. Like I said, a lot of times when you get caught up with identifying with the body as your full experience, you lose sight of what you may actually need, because it can be a little overwhelming. And we don't realize that we're a little bit of a lot of things, so it's only natural that we're going to feel a lot of things throughout our day or throughout our life. But it's not necessarily the ending point, you know. Um, the other awareness and affirmation that is okay to own up to is, when we can say that I'm not well right now, and it's okay. It's okay to not be well at times. It's okay to recognize that I'm not well, but there's still light within me, and this is a part of a growing process. And I can choose a thought that will trigger an emotion that I have a certain feeling about that will allow me or trigger me to feel better. I can do that. And I can recognize that I won't necessarily always feel the way I'm feeling right now. You know, even though I may feel like this, I'm still worthy of some level of love from something or someone, right? I'm still worthy of some level of respect. Maybe not the level of love and respect that we always feel that we deserve, but maybe the level of love and respect that we've earned. As long as there's some level of light, there's always something to attach to. There's always something to cling to. As long as there's some level of light, there's always something to respect. Respecting is seeing Ra, or seeing the source, or seeing light. So as long as it's, no matter how I'm feeling, even if I'm, like I said, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling hopeless, I'm feeling despondent in the moment, as long as there's still some light inside of me, then I recognize that the potentiality of respect still exists. So not only do I not need to disrespect myself, but I also don't need to accept any level of disrespect as long as that light is still within and I'm still holding on to that. Like I said, and I'm going to go back to mind, heart, and words. What I share in chapter coming up is for some of us, when we reach a goal and we experience the emotional response of ease, fearlessness immediately sets in. You see, that's a different sort of response, right? Um, Being able to achieve a particular thing may put you into a certain space where now you feel that anything is possible. You feel a measure of fearlessness, right? And sometimes there is fear of what happens next. That's a big one, right? Um, Oftentimes, we have a certain vision and goal established in our psyche. And, well, what do you do after that? I don't know. You find that often with people in learning spaces or collegiate spaces. All they're focused on is getting the degree. And there's a fear of the darkness and the murkiness that happens after that time where they're now responsible for their own freedom. They're not being graded by anything other than their higher selves. And one of the affirmations that it's important to hold on to is that I am functioning and operating from my higher self and not from the sensitivity of my own emotions or the sensitivity of my own feelings. When operating from that particular sensitivity, you block yourself off from the palette, the palette of awareness and consciousness that exists within the sky. There's an emotional earth, there's an emotional hell, and then there's an emotional sky. And you can choose where you would like to send those emotions. But you can only do that when you can affirm that your emotions do not own you. You're not owned by your emotions, but your heart chakra or your seat of intelligence is large enough that it can hold all of the different things that you are and all of the different things that you're feeling without losing your momentum of purpose. See, sometimes it's hard for us to imagine that the heart is as vast and expansive as it actually is, right? So the other thing I say in that particular paragraph, there could also be the creeping fear of becoming a different type of person because of what we just achieved. For other individuals, when a goal or objective is met and that emotion of elation surges through their body, they may feel a great sense of pride and joy. A person could feel prideful because what they envisioned in their inner eye they achieved. That accomplishment invoked an emotion of belonging or happiness. They may feel a sense of satisfaction or delight at their ability to bring happiness into their lives. Now, these are very basic examples, but sometimes the unsophisticated things become the largest stumbling blocks in our lives. Something as simple as interchanging the word emotion for feeling can be a huge trip up in our learning. I'll tell you one of the reasons why this often happens. Sometimes when we are so obsessed with the inescapable bubble of our own lives, it is very difficult to understand why people process their emotions through feelings that are foreign to us. One of the reasons that I place that in that particular work, because I've had like many people who I consider to be far wiser than I am tell me that emotions and feelings are the same thing. When asked, oh, they're the same. They're interchangeable. And of course, if that were the case, then we wouldn't need two different words. People who know how to craft languages and ideas, they know how to be efficient. So the idea of certain words just being wasteful, just being used for whatever reason, really makes very little sense. A lot of times, it is our words that will trigger emotions, and like I said, it can become bi-directional. I have clients sometimes who say things like, "I never can catch a break. Things never go my way," or Bad stuff always happens to me. Why is it always me? No matter what I'm doing, I can never seem to make any progress. I'm never going to meet somebody that I love, right? And sometimes we don't understand that harsh criticism that we throw upon ourselves, it does become self-fulfilling prophecies. And when those the ings in our language are so powerful, right? So, when you call yourself a particular thing and then you add the ing onto it, it makes it here and now, right? So if I am expressing a negative affirmation about my lack of movement, or my lack of health, and I say I walk, I exercise, which is an affirmation that many people might give you who are trying to help you to reprogram your thinking. But one of the most powerful things you can do is just throw an ing on the back of it. I'm walking. I'm exercising, right? So now what that allows you to do is to claim the moment. The moment becomes so critical because it's in the moment that the heart gets filled up, right? So what are you filling the heart up with? If I say that I exercise or I walk, I eat healthy, I love, I save, any of those things that I may say, I can always rearrange them within my psyche to become something that's far off, that can become a later thing, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be the moment. But if I say I am eating healthy, now the dynamics of my emotion and the dynamics of my feeling now have to address what's going to encourage me to imagine myself in the moment with that level of power, with that level of energetic vibration. And that's just a very simple way that you can raise your vibration. We always talk about raising vibrations, and I have a certain high that I'm feeling. But when? How long does it take? When does it happen? And when we begin to affirm good things for ourselves, we can change our vibration by changing the time. And the time is changed just by ing. Just by ing. That's it. Like I said, I am singing. If you want to be a singer, I am singing. That's a higher vibration than I sing. Because as soon as you say I sing, I dance, I invest. As soon as you say any of those things, the mind can immediately, or the brain rather, we have those different emotions. We have the hell emotions, the earth emotions, the sky emotions. Those emotions will immediately attack the concept. I invest. No, you don't. When do you invest? You don't remember that money you lost last time when you tried to enter into that particular deal and it didn't work for you? I am investing. As soon as you say I am investing, the lower and the mid mind begins to conform itself to the higher mind or the higher emotions. Right? So one of the things that I say later in the chapter is, and again, feel free, anybody who wants to speak, feel free to raise your hand and speak. All right. This is not a lecture. This is just the first I don't even want to say the name of this place. So I'm just gonna call it the ch. This is just the first meeting that we're doing to kind of do something a little different, and definitely, as always, feel free to invite other people into the space who you feel may add on to the cipher in a positive way. But one of the things I say later on is we may experience the same emotion, but on a personal level, individuals will always have a different feeling response. Our emotions, because they are energy in motion, are primarily going to be felt throughout our physical structure. When we experience certain emotions, we can feel these emotions inside of our bodies. When we are experiencing certain feelings, those feelings are chiefly felt within the field of our mind sphere. So our emotions we feel inside of our body, and our feelings we feel inside of our mind, or we experience them inside of our mind, right? How many times do we say things like, I feel sick? Right? Well, what's actually sick if you feel sick? You're actually not speaking about your body. You're using the wrong word to speak about your body. If you feel sick, it's a thought of sickness. So imagine the vibration that becomes prevalent or most pervasive in that moment. There is another prime distinction between our emotions and our feelings as well. Emotions typically are very quick and transient flashes of energy that project outward from us. Emotions typically do not last for the long term. Our feelings could last moments, hours, or even years. Think about phobias that some of us may have, right? You see certain things and it just brings you mice. Here's one. You may have had a fear of frogs or mice or spiders or snakes as a child. And now as an adult, uh, whenever you see a mouse, that same, you freeze, your ears plug up, you just hear that white noise and you go temporarily blind just for the moment. And the mouse seems much larger, much more vicious and ferocious than what it really is, just in the moment, in that little flash that it's running around and moving around. It's because of a feeling that's still active and working inside of our brains and inside of our psyches, right? And the emotion that you may have may be different each time, though. You may see a mouse in your place and you may become frustrated because maybe you just cleaned up or maybe you just moved there. You may see a mouse and you may become pensive, because you say, wow, that means that someone is trying to get into my space. Typically, when we have things like mice, that's somebody trying to break in, somebody trying to get there, right? So you may have that type of energy, that type of flash, or it just might be fright. It's going to jump on me in the middle of the night. It's going to suck the breath out of my body, whatever it is, right? But there could be long-term feelings that we haven't addressed and spoken to that need to be looked at. So it's so important to recognize the order of things and that the feelings that you have about something are typically the ones that you want to address first. The emotions are something that are just in the body. And if you're holding yourself to the idea of being your body, then you got a lot more, you have a lot more problems than just trying to find a couple of good affirmations. Just as you are the only one that is called in this lifetime to master your thoughts. And we know that your feelings exist within your thoughts. No one has the right to make you feel any sort of way because of what you're feeling. Because it's a thought that's within you that you have to deal with. It becomes your own purpose and your own karma. It doesn't necessarily mean that those feelings or those thoughts are valid outside of your own brain, because there could be a disarrangement of your own thoughts that has to be worked out, which is, of course, your job. But you never want to be in a situation where someone seeks to deny you of your feelings, right? Because when you're denying someone of their feelings, you're denying them of their thought process. So as a result, or as a precursor, we have to accept that it's okay to have feelings that may be considered negative. And it's okay to even identify those feelings when they come about, right? And if we need to express those feelings, then so be it, because they're not for anyone else to judge. Judgment, comes through action, right? That's where judgment begins. It begins in the realm of what we tend to act on. What we think is a private thing between you and your maker, right? So to judge someone, or to be judged wrongly for a particular feeling that you experience in your life is an erroneous thing for something to do, for someone else to do. You have to sit in judgment over your own feelings, which, of course, as I explained, is your own thoughts. And you have the right to have your thought. Now, what you express as emotion is something different, because emotion, again, is a movement. It's emotion. It's a motion that goes outward from us. And as it goes outward, we're sending that into the world, into other people. We can saturate others with our emotions. But feelings are something that we saturate ourselves with, you see. So emotions are something that we always want to sort of monitor a little bit more. And we recognize that we are alive and we are vigorous beings, if you will. But we recognize that when we're more in touch with our thoughts, when we're more in touch with our feelings, right? If you want to feel more alive and you want to feel more invigorated towards life, get in touch with your thoughts, which express themselves as feelings, right? That's where the energy of life exists, okay? Because your emotions they're just a stream that pours outward, okay? And in pouring outward, they sort of hit other people, right? I see you got your hand up, Zach, so feel free to fire at will or speak at will. Feel free.
Peace, Chief. You have to invite him in as a speaker.
I already did, Kashia. He has to accept the invite.
Give thanks.
I'm a quick learner. I figured that out 20 minutes ago when I brought you in as a speaker.
Give thanks.
Yeah. Zach didn't accept it. That's all. He had his hand up though. So, here we go. I think Zach doesn't know how to work it. He said he's asking again. Yeah, I already invited you, brother. Okay. So anyway, where was I at? Yeah, I don't know. Zach, I see your hand up. I invited you to speak, and then your hand went down, and then you asked to speak again. So I think it's something you might be doing. I'm gonna send you another invite. Let's try it again. Zach is now a speaker. There you go.
Can I be heard? Do my
Nah.
Peace, T.
Peace, brother.
Yeah. Making sure I'm on the same. The feeling would almost be like the heaven that would keep one trapped in hell, and like the body. So the feeling would be one just thinking like it's not like this job is all that I'm gonna do, and almost losing their vision of moving forward, where therefore then the body would almost have a psychosomatic feeling, emotion that would trap that energy in motion moving forward.
I would say you might be looking at it more as a problem. It's very difficult to trap emotions, right? So just like I said, it's bidirectional. Your emotions are already moving. So what was the thing that had the potential to be trapped? That was the thought. So the thought makes an emotion go forward, right? So it's free now. It's moving, however it decides to move. Sometimes you feel it as heat in your body. I'm heated. You get angry. Your eyes turn red.
Mm-hmm.
The blood vessels in your eye fill up. So that means it's moving. Your emotions are moving, right? But sometimes those things don't happen, and we have a thought that we won't really acknowledge. So it never gets an opportunity to free itself as an emotion. Emotions are waste. They're a byproduct of the like digestive waste of thoughts. And as probably know everyone else, you have to clear your system of waste or it becomes toxic. So then you end up with toxic emotions. And the feelings are the responses, the mental responses that we have to those emotions. I may think something and then I'm guilty. I feel guilty about the feeling. I may think something, become sad about the thought, and then feel guilty that I was sad about the thought. But that feeling of guilt in regards to that sadness is a thought. It can actually be controlled. I can control how I want to respond to my own emotions.
And then does that start to come in with what you were speaking of earlier with the judgment of one maybe thinking that I shouldn't be feeling this because so many say, maybe you shouldn't be angry. There's something wrong with you if you're angry, or you shouldn't want to have a reaction towards so and so, and then they feel bad about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes people don't realize that they have a right to have their feelings. They even have a right to have those feelings be heard because they're thoughts, right? But what happens is that sometimes people tend to hide their feelings and emotions from themselves, right? So when you hide those things from yourself, you have to think about, well, why am I doing that? So then you project that reality out into the world. So now when you start to feel something, someone tells you, tuck that away, hide that. Because that's a reality that you've already created within yourself. You see? So that's always something to think about. Like, I may not give myself the right to express. I may not give myself the right to feel. So if it leaks out here and there and someone says, oh man, you shouldn't feel that way, or you sound angry, or you sound hurt, or you sound bitter, or whatever it is, we first have to go inward and say, is this a response of how I'm responding to my own emotion?
Mm-hmm.
And also, am I walking with the affirmation that I deserve to have my emotions heard by others? That's a normal life experience. If I start crying or feeling away, do I immediately start apologizing?
So how much of that would lean on then one not having the ability to articulate that emotion per se? So therefore, then others start to label it, and then as opposed to maybe one having that say, I know what this feeling is per se.
Right. I mean, no one can really effectively label a feeling, right? We can label emotions. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You smiled, or you seem happy, or I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm charged to go get something done. Yeah, those things can definitely be labeled, and there's nothing wrong with that because they're multidimensional. But when someone labels the feeling that we have in regards to our emotion, that's when it gets dangerous, because you can't heal or grow until you become in touch with your own feelings, right? So when others pretend to be more in touch with our feeling, like someone could be in touch with your emotion, sure, more than you are, because sometimes we leak. I've been around many a angry person, and their anger just spills off of them. It's just always there. And if you say something, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. You seeing things like, nah, come on, man. Like, it's clearly there. You know what I mean? Like it's undeniable. Now, the way you feel about being angry, that, you may be in denial. That may be the thought that comes into your brain. Denial. It may be guilt. Maybe you like being angry. Maybe it's pride. We pride people on something. If you even look at models sometimes, sometimes some of the poses they do, are like these snotty poses or like these bored looks. It can be fashionable to appear angry or to appear detached or emotionless, if you will. So the actual feeling that comes along with it is something that that's something that a person has to own. But you certainly can say, yeah, this is the emotion that you sent outward. And why is it that you have the right to say it? Because emotions are felt in the physical and they're sent out from the body. So I'm a victim of your emotions. If you come in and you're feeling great and you're emoting positivity, I'm going to feel positivity. If you're emoting negativity, I'm going to feel negativity, depending on your level of personal power. How far can you send it? You see, or it might just be in a little tiny bubble around you, and you might just be burning yourself up. But if it's something that's chronic, it gets stronger and stronger. A nasty young person becomes a powerful, nasty older person. They're powerful in their nastiness. When they come in the room, no matter what's happening, even when they come in the house, you just want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Let's go to the backyard or let's go down to the park. They ain't even say anything. They just came in. You just heard their keys in the door, and it's like, ugh.
So it would be wise then for one to find a channel for their emotions, like as a model would almost channel, that feeling of, like you just said, of being maybe a harsh person. Then I'm gonna put this in a pose as like an artist would put something on a painting to be able to channel that, as opposed to suppressing it and walking around with it on a day in and day out basis, which will ultimately deform them.
Well, the thing is, though, is that emotions always have a channel. If they didn't, we wouldn't even know that they're there. They always have a channel. The thing is, you might want to decide how to channel it. It's like emotions are electricity. They're energy, right? It can't be destroyed. It can't be created. So it's always there. And the very nature of energy is that it moves. Energy is not stagnant. Or if it was, we wouldn't even know it's there. We wouldn't, the power that comes from it is its actual movement, right? So our goal is to figure out how we want to steer our emotions, because they're gonna come out. It's inevitable, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why it's so important not to identify yourself totally with your body. That's the actual problem in that. Because when you identify yourself totally with your body, then your emotions own you. Because your emotions, they kind of can move indiscriminately through your body. And the thing about them is that they're short. Like I said, they're short term. So, you can feel an emotion for 3 minutes that can establish a feeling within you for 20 years.
Right.
So that's why it's important that the channels for emotions are there. You got to be able to identify your channels, man. Sometimes it's grinding your teeth, clenching your fist, crying, eating, whatever it is. How is that energy moving through me? Accelerated heart rate, high blood pressure, right? And if I am in control over this physical reality, I should be able to establish new channels. I decide where that's going to be sent. And then eventually, it's kind of something that happens concurrently. I'm deciding where it needs to be sent. And I'm also learning in time to control the source of it. This is when we dive deeper into things like meditation in order to attain a focused and clear and logical mind. When the mind is focused and clear and we're centered and we're calm, then we're able to actually control where the emotions go. That's why sometimes something will happen and you may feel sad, but in the moment of you feeling sad, you also offer healing to someone else. You see, as opposed to just being consumed by your sadness. Now you're making sure everybody else is all right. You might even start cracking jokes, things like that, even though it's a sad moment, because you have decided to center yourself and you can feel the emotion without losing complete control.
So if one is in like let's say a situation where they feel like it's maybe problematic and causing them anxiety, right? Is that asking one to grow in a situation, or should one start looking at it and saying, you know what, I should probably remove myself from some of these situations. But then I also don't want to be labeled a runner. You know,
You
like how does
said
one
that,
start?
or maybe someone should say I should remove myself from some of those situations.
Right. But then somebody like, well, you can't run from all your, all certain situations. So I want to stand firm, but then also these situations are causing me anxiety. So, does one, like, how does one start to deal with that?
Situations never cause you anxiety. You cause your own anxiety by your perception. You have a situation and you have a circumstance, right? So when you're situated in a particular thing, you're sitting. It's like being situated. I'm a sit this here. It's situated here. Now, what is my circumstance? My circumstance is how I circumspect. It's how I look at the situation, and then that determines if I'm going to have anxiety or not. I've been in boxing rings before where people were punching me in the face. And in that moment, I could have decided, man, this situation isn't looking good. I can't seem, this person's faster than me. They keep punching me in the face. But is that my circumstance? Because this may be the situation. This may be what's happening right now. But what I'm seeing is if I just let this person keep punching me in my face for another 20 seconds, I'm going to be able to give them a body shot. And I'm about to end this fight, right? So I can choose panic in that moment, because sometimes that happens too when you're fighting, or you're sparring, you panic, you see all those hands in your face, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's like somebody, putting a fan in your face. Or you can center yourself, and then you'll see the shot beyond all the hands waving all over the place, So I can't really totally co-sign. I have to remove myself from this, because it's causing me stress. We have to learn to stay calm in stressful situations, because ultimately that is how we define peace, is by our ability to stay calm in what we would consider to be stressful situations, and learning how to deal with our excess emotions in a way that's constructive, or at least in a way that's nutritious, right? Because again, emotions are like a river. They're running, and you want them to run. A river runs better when it has less friction. So, a river creates its own smooth surface. It wears things down via erosion, right? So when you create a smooth surface for your emotions to come out, like everybody here was obviously raised in their own way, right? But I had a father who was quick with his hands and, like different ways. He was a musician, but he also was good with his hands as far as fighting. And sometimes when me and my brothers, we would do things that we had no business doing, we just get a quick shot. Before you know it, like, it's like, boom, the back of your head is stinging. Oh, and then he would just go on, continue with whatever he was doing, or he's talking to his friend or whatever. And you could tell, like, he's not even bothered, because I'm not holding that, man. I see you over there messing with something I told you to leave alone. I'm not going to hold that frustration. Bow. There you go. Yeah, man. So yeah, man, you seen that fight Friday night? Oh man, Joe Frazier, something else. So you just keeping it going, so the ability to transition into someone who is naturally collected and who is naturally centered, you know, that comes from being able to control that moment with those ing statements. You know, I am fighting, you know, or I am relaxing, you know, being able to kind of calm yourself down with those ings, you know, you can gain more control, you know, over time. But people will say, oh, you're running from this. But even that, if you have the feeling that you want to take flight, that is a thought. And your thoughts have to be worked through. Now, your emotion is something else. If someone says, oh, you keep crying, or someone says, oh, you're always fearful. Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I am. Right. You know, but now how I respond to that emotion by way of feeling is me working out my thoughts. And I'm allowed to do that. You know, that's why it's so important to differentiate the concept of an emotion from a feeling, because emotions are to be moderated and your feelings are to be deliberated. You know.
Peace. I have a question.
Peace. All right, come with it.
So I can imagine that, those unexpressed or those emotions that are not even acknowledged can cause someone to become, I guess, rancid inside. So how would one begin to undo that, if possible?
Right. So, you know, a stagnated emotion becomes like a stagnated thought. It becomes a demonic energy. Right. So, like when we say, you know, we got to release our demons. The first thing is acknowledgement, which is often the hardest part of it. You know, if again, you have a person who's angry all the time, someone says you're angry, what is the response? I'm not angry. That's just how my face looks. You know, or, oh, I should have worded that differently because obviously you just think I'm angry all the time. You know, you start to become defensive and you blame other people for what's very clear and apparent, right? So the first way out of that trap is, again, like I said, I'm aligning myself with the opulence of freedom. I'm aligning myself with the enthusiasm of freedom. I'm starting there. So if I align myself with what I consider to be the wisdom and an enthusiasm and the vivaciousness of freedom, then I am free from the body, because the body is what is trying to keep me trapped inside of this darkness. I mean, we are light inside of a dark body, you see. So the first step to that is acknowledging, yeah, that is something that I feel, or that is an emotion that I hold. Now, as soon as you do that, you bring it out into the light and you give it, you give it a space to dissipate. You give it a space to evaporate, but the other thing again is giving yourself permission. Like I was saying earlier, like you have permission to moderate your emotions. You have permission to articulate your feelings. And if you allow yourself to be around individuals who may kind of be out of harmony with that thought, and maybe be in a place where they are telling you that, your emotions or the acknowledgement of your emotions doesn't bring you self-awareness, then you have a problem, because your negative emotions or your positive emotions, either one of them, when you're able to visualize the feelings that come as a result, that visualization is what brings you the self-awareness and the self-control. So you have to be in a space where you can work it through. It's almost like having a spiritual experience. Let's take like your typical fire baptized church where people go, every first day to work out their emotions. It's not an environment where there's a lot of sharp objects all around, because people are going to be flipping over, dancing, falling out, and getting stuff off them. Sometimes you even see people in the spirit and they'll be shaking their arms for it, like they're shaking something off their arms. You see? So they're allowing those waves of energy to get up and out. And in that environment, I mean, unless you got comedians, no one's really going to make fun of you and say, why are you shouting like that? Why are you falling out like that? You see? So you have to first allow yourself to to unobjectively experience that emotion. And then you have to give yourself the permission to know that being able to deliberate the feeling from that emotion is what brings greatness into your life. And always seek for the best emotion. Always seek for the best emotion in any experience that you're having, and always seek for honesty with your feelings, because honesty with your feelings is honesty with your thoughts. That's the key. But yeah, they won't become rancid if you just acknowledge. That's the key. Acknowledgement is a release.
Give thanks.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, anyone can talk. Y'all don't just have to ask questions too. You could share too. I saw you unmute, Zach.
Yeah, I was just gonna. It was making me think of like what how somebody is starting to acknowledge their emotions, and it's like, well, what if somebody is learning? It has to be a learned thing, I guess, from how they're gonna label it. And I've seen like even videos where somebody will say, it's natural for you to feel like you should be in a fight or flight mode if there's a bear in the woods, but you shouldn't be in a fight or flight mode just by reading an email, right? Or somebody has a situation at work, or say, right? Like there's situations that it should be in. So then now one can start pulling from that and being like, well, when I start to feel that, right? Like kind of the example that you gave with your father, and then going right back to what he was doing. And they were like, but I can't seem to let this go though, right? Like it just seems to be just pulling on me on a day in and day out basis, as opposed to me being able to just put myself back in the moment and saying that was then like our perfecting, like our, singing, keep it moving. It just seems to stay with me. Right. So I guess that's just what I see with people, and it's like, how do they let that? I'm not necessarily a question. It was a thought that I just wanted to share.
Yeah, nah, for real. That's a great thought, man, because there's an unfairness there. You're supposed to tell me how I would feel on a day to day when I live in a hyper-stimulated environment that keeps my stress levels so high that I am always in fight or flight. And that's done purposely. So whenever we're asserting certain psychological ideas like that, the historical context of a people needs to be taken into account. That's why, like, you look at shows like there was a show, I know they don't have it anymore, but like Punked, and they have like a couple of people on the internet now who still do stuff like this, where they go into certain environments and they do pranks. And one thing I noticed with Ashton Kutcher, whenever he would go to a melanin rich person, it was always a punk prank that had to do with the law. Sheriffs coming and repossessing something or getting pulled over. But when it was a non-melanin dominant person, it was something like, okay, we messed up your order at the bakery or something like, so, or like you see some of the videos on YouTube now, they go in the hood and they'll have some guy ask a question that's misleading, and then they'll highlight the ones when the brothers in the hood throw their fist up. Like, what's up? What you say to me? Without recognizing the environment and how in some of those environments people are messed with all the time, and there has to be a certain level of defensiveness because it is a dangerous environment, right? So what does that do to your chemical levels? I would say, again, that goes kind of to the idea that in terms of affirming beyond that way of thinking, I would say that one needs to tell themselves that I can control the channeling of my emotions, and I can create my own feelings by the thoughts that I have. And it's okay if those feelings are different from all others around me. That's a very important kind of state, emotional state, to be able to express. To one, be able to say that I can easily express my feelings when they are required to be expressed. And I can revel in the enjoyment of being aware of my emotions. And regardless of what all others are feeling around me, I'm going to allow myself to feel what it is that my emotions are urging me to, and I'm going to feel those things with ease, and I'm going to feel those things with grace. And I'm not going to allow others' emotional response or reactions, rather, emotional reactions to change those empowering moments in my life. Because when you're conscious of your emotions, that's an opportunity for empowerment. And when someone tries to knock that away from you, it's like, yo, I'm picking a lock on this prison, and then someone comes and snitches, or someone comes and bends my lockpick and said, nah, you shouldn't do it. Nah, I have to examine and deliberate this feeling that I have behind this emotion. I have to do that because that's the only way I'm going to get free of it. And you're telling me to leave that alone. That goes back to what Kashia had asked about those rancid, becoming rancid internally. And that happens when we don't allow our true feelings to guide. Man, your true feelings, I can say this, I can put this on people. Your true feelings are always based around exploration because we're born to be explorers, right? That's why we have to tell babies no. We don't have to. I actually don't think it's a good thing. But babies are told no a lot, and I mean, like you
Right.
think about it, when they learn to speak, like they talk about the terrible twos. Why are they so terrible? Because they learn that no. They say it so often,
That's my name.
Right, exactly. Is that my name? Exactly. It's I think it was reported that babies hear the word no, or toddlers hear the word no like 330 times a day.
Mm.
Right? So what does that do to the psyche? When now you're moving through the world, because that obviously established a measure of fear, but you're moving through the world with this no, this no kind of motif, if you will. you know. Yeah, I see you. I got you. I brought you in, Sister Sequoia. I think I brought you in. Did I bring you in? Did I bring you
Wait,
in?
I think we act.
Yeah, first time. So, yeah, be patient, please. I think I got you in there. But yeah, so no, that no piece is serious, and it creates that fear mechanism again where we're constantly telling ourselves no. So when even if I tell you, hey, say the affirmation, I can gracefully express my feelings, regardless if they are different from all others around me. That's a mantra you could say to yourself every day. But there's gonna be a no in there. Nah, you can't do that. You're gonna get fired. Nah, you can't do that because you're around people you can't stand. You really gonna tell them that?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes difficult in that sense. Sister Sequoia, if you feel free to speak.
I don't think she's in here quite yet.
Yeah, I opened up her mic, but you know what? She did say that she didn't really know how to use the app. So I'm not gonna take. I'm just saying I ain't gonna take the blame for all of these now.
Well, while we wait, I was just thinking too, even in the sense of when people like, this person just brings the worst out of it, right? Like, how long does one stay around a person where they be like, hold on, let me make sure that I can gracefully around this person, where this person is not controlling, or as opposed to, and even like those passive aggressive statements that some people are like, I'm just gonna pray for you then, right? As opposed to allowing themselves to articulate, nah, you know what, this is what's going on because I'm afraid that this person may leave me, or this person I may lose my job, or I may, if I start to speak how I really want, then, I'm going to be correct it. And then, as opposed to me doing that, then I'm gonna just suppress, or maybe I'm just going to now try to figure out how best to get along with people when I know that they're bringing me to my worst point. Or is that something wrong with me? And looking at, well, maybe I am the one that's causing these issues in the situation, and not being able to, I guess, deal with old feelings that maybe I've had. Like you said, when somebody comes and they jiggle that key, and they're like, well, maybe I am the one that is, actually causing people to leave and be a deterrent, and I mean, I guess it's a fine line, wouldn't it be, with finding that balance between seeing where the actual problem lies?
Man, the problem always lies with you, right? Because what you described is a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that you're around, or even not around, anyone that you have a fear of being critical of outwardly, that's the person that controls you. That's the person that you're enslaved to. And you may have more than one master, right? For some of us, we get on certain platforms and we have to use code words.
Right.
Right. So that tells us something right there. All right, well, that's one of our masters, right? Can't be critical over there, So the thing is, to say like, oh man, somebody brings the worst out of me. Well, why are you interacting with that person? I would never interact with someone who is willfully interested in bringing the worst out of me unless it's for my healing, right? Because somebody could say that about their physical trainer,
Mm-hmm.
And again, what would be the rhyme and reason? My trainer makes me feel horrible or makes me feel this. They don't make you feel that. Those are the feelings that you have based on the emotions that you have in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, ain't nobody made you feel that way. So, it's the same thing when we're interacting with people and we use that as an excuse and rhyme and reason. Oh, I don't want to lose my job. Well, what's more important? That your emotional well-being or money? What again, now we're talking about masters, right? So I'd rather be enslaved to my heavenly self rather be enslaved to earthly fears. So being able to have control over even your inner images is where that comes from too. When we can control, like, okay, well, if I say this, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. Well, that's an image of fear. That's a sequence of fear that we've established inside of our own minds. This has got to happen and that's got to happen. So then those images of inner fear become sequences of inner dialogue. And then those sequences of inner dialogue become sequences of inner feelings, right? And then it just loops right back over again because it's a cycle. Your feelings then create more thoughts. Then the thoughts create more images, and the images create more dialogues, and the dialogue, and it just keeps going around and around and around. Instead of saying, you know what, before I do anything, I'm going to honor the feelings that I have about myself in regards to what they teach me about myself. That's where I'm going to start, right? And I'm going to keep a level head, and I'm going to stay cool, and I'm going to maintain my composure. I'm going to stay cool under pressure, if you will. And I will always recognize that the beliefs that I have are what cause my emotional reactions. No one else. It's my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You see, this person says something and I believe I can't say anything back. I believe I can't disagree with them. I believe that they're saying this when they're really saying that. And those beliefs then create, again, more emotional reactions as opposed to responses of feeling. And again, a response is something that's thought about, and a feeling is a thought. An emotion is something that's quick. It's moving. It's energy that's moving, and it functions by reaction. And sometimes it's good. If I believe I'm going to be harmed, and I react defensively, that may be a good thing. It may be something that saves my life. But I have to be able to sit with calm determination and recognize when I'm experiencing a belief versus when I'm experiencing a truthful thought towards my own emotional and physical well-being.
Sometimes people like to give people, the affirmation, I'm just a spiritual being having a human experience. And, deal with some of those situations. Like, you know what, I almost, and I would almost look at that in the sense of saying, like, you're God. So
Right.
stop, trying to interact with the human experience or relating to the human experience, or almost, not even acknowledging that human experience, but to go beyond it. Is that a beneficial way to look at it, or would that be kind of detrimental to one's growth?
It depends on your religion. Right? If you have a religion of chaos, then it would be advantageous for you to imagine yourself to be nothing more than a god. Gods are made by humans. Gods don't make themselves, right? So if you now consider yourself to be nothing but a god, because we are gods, but that's a part of what we are. That's a small thing, right? There is an inner dialogue that often makes ourselves gods, if you will. But if you see yourself as only a god, then now you have to have humans who maintain the energy or the power of your godhood. You got to be worshipped. And worshiping is defining, it's ascribing attributes. So I need someone to say, you are this, you are great, you are beautiful, you are handsome, you are cute. You need all of those different things, which become ego stroking. And you need that to keep the God or that concept of you being a God alive, right? So separating completely from the human experience is, if you want to do that, that's the thing. Like, we could do whatever we feel like doing. Sure, go right ahead, right? But being able to acknowledge that I have a flesh heart inside of me, and inside of that heart exists many different possibilities of energy. And that's cool. Like, that's one of the cool things about having a heart, is that I can feel sadness. I can feel love. I can feel fear. I can feel excitement. I can feel joy. I can feel serenity and all of these different things. And I came here to feel those certain feelings. So why would I want to deny that? Sometimes that gets into that other world of having something that's plainly in front of our face, but having to fall for the delusion that it's something different just because somebody says it's something different. I want to identify as this, so you have to accept that I identify as that. I can tolerate that you identify as that. Sure, I'll tolerate that you identify as a god, because there are many gods. You're not my god, but there are many gods. That's cool. But, they rank in power. How powerful could you be as a god if you have to make the proclamation that you are a god? Who you trying to convince? Well, so experiencing emotions and experiencing that human reality, we're spirits living a human reality. Yeah, we are. I would agree. We are that. But we're also humans able to tap into a spiritual reality. So which one are we? We're both. Your humanity, we spend a large part of our lives fighting against our humanity. So, you can't act like it doesn't have some kind of power over you.
Mm-hmm. This is my last thing I'm saying.
Sorry, I was trying to bring Sequoia in.
Okay.
I sent her a bunch of invite. I think she's down for the count.
I don't know. When you was just talking though, it made me think of, like a God has to almost in a sense have this ego stroke. And it was
Mm-hmm.
just making me think of sometimes how emotions are brought out in relationships and how maybe one, when they get into a relationship, each person is trying to convince maybe the other person that they are this greatest thing, that I am this greatest thing. And then after, sometimes that high subsides and maybe they have now committed themselves to one another. Now it's like, that ego stroking is no longer there. And this person is just bringing me to my worst, uh, possible lowest moments. I'm just, saying
Mm-hmm.
somebody might say. And now it's like, are those, now I'm looking and reaching for an affirmation that, maybe I should have not just, ignored from Jump Street, but the
Right.
ego stroking felt so good, right? It was my
Yeah.
emotions that made it feel so good in the moment that it's like, I want this forever. It's going to be like this forever. As opposed to recognizing the situation and be like, hold on, let me walk, not run, because I feel like maybe, and then, going from that history of, well, maybe I have another family member, their relationship didn't work, theirs didn't work. So this one, though, looks a whole lot different. And I want this feeling forever,
Right.
right? Like, it almost seems to, there's no really question in there. It's just me kind of thinking out loud when you was just talking about, you know, that whole the God and ego stroking, and then how people get into relationships. And
Yeah. I mean, but what's so sad about that is that people forget our animal nature, right? Ultimately, you're gonna come to the realization that anyone that you're crazy about is an animal just like you, right? When we, I mean, it's just the truth of it. When you first meet someone and you have all of um, these different chemical highs firing off, you don't think that this person stinks up the bathroom sometimes. That doesn't cross your mind, or what kind of grooming did they do before they came here? Like how much, shaving or plucking, or you know, through the underarms might stink, but because it's cold outside, you can't smell it. You know, but you don't think about any of those sort of things. But they're an animal, just like you're an animal. And that's part of the amazingness of mating in that sense, because it is through those chemical highs that we're able to get beyond a lot of things that would cause us not to mate and would probably greatly affect the human population if we, you know, if we really were able to really think our way through a lot of these matchings and pairings that we go through. But it's always important to recognize that whatever brings you in keeps you in. And what's so tricky about that is if you can acknowledge whatever brings you in keeps you in, then you also have to acknowledge that nothing lasts forever, which is the very nature of life. Your relationship, no matter how great your relationship is, that doesn't even last forever. You're going to die, right? Or the relationship may end, or, you may just decide that I don't feel the same way anymore. So I'm going to relate to this person differently. And that person may decide the same thing about you. I'm going to relate to you differently, which is completely acceptable. But it's the feelings that we run from instead of affirming that I'm going to welcome all of the lessons that my feelings offer to me, you know, which is a powerful thing to do. Yeah, let me see. I'm going to try to bring Antonio in. If it works with Antonio, then I know, not me.
yeah, even when people get in those situations, like you said, it may be looking at, not necessarily you're gonna die one day, but it's like almost the history that one starts to pull from of even hearing the song like I want to grow old with you. But then as you start getting older, it's like you start looking at somebody differently, but then it's like, well, is there something wrong with me if I don't no longer have this feeling, or if this feeling now is different? than when it was 10 years ago, and not
Nah,
really acknowledging that.
that's the key. Yeah, it's the acknowledgement. That's the key. But you know what? Wisdom tells you to acknowledge it in the very beginning. You know, wisdom tells you to do that. There's a sister years ago that, well, I still know her, but she had told me years ago she was pursuing me, right? She's married though, and you know, I remember sitting in her office, big old picture, her and her husband. You know, he's a very accomplished, notable person, and you know, she was really, you know, putting a bid in real strong. And I said, oh, so like, you know, you and your husband, you have an open thing? Like, what's what? Right. And she said, well, the day I married my husband, I told him that he would not be the last man that I would sleep with. Right. So, um, you know, and I know some may hear that and be like, what? It's crazy. It's wild. But you know what?
That's a tough pill to swallow now.
Right. You know, the only part that was crazy to me, because I was like, yo, you told him the day you got married? Like, you know, like, was that in your vow? Did you say that in front of everybody? Or like, was it like, you know, you whispered it in his ear or something with the first dance, you know? So, but she told me that. And then, you know, for me, I have more respect for that, right? Because she's recognizing and acknowledging, like, look, I not only am I wise to who I am, but I'm also wise to who I may be, who I may become. You know, another great example of that, you know, it's a movie that people twist up the hero from the villain a lot. It's the movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, it's a lot of good information in that movie. But to me, like the most righteous character in the movie was Robin Givens' character. You know, even though she was supposed to be kind of the villain in a sense, but because she told him what it was in the very beginning. Like, hey, we're just having fun. Like, you know, and he came off as he's a Mac and he's getting all these women. Whoop-de-whoop. So she's like, all right, cool. I do the same thing. I'm just a female doing it. And she stayed true to what she said. Right. And he then gets Holly Berry, who has no respect for who he is. Like, he's walking down the street. She's like, oh, you looking at that woman walking down the street? Yeah, that's because that's who Marcus is, you know? And now so like if we had a Boomerang part 2, it obviously would be a divorce, right? You know, because he wouldn't be able to stop his playboy ways or whatever, you know, but, that's the essence of it, you know, being able to recognize that I can value my feelings. I can hold on to the ones that serve me the greatest, but I can be honest for the experiences and the lessons that they provide. And I can be in complete control of, you know, whatever's called for by the situation. Right. So, the situation that calls for honesty, I can be in control of that and say, you know what? I'm going to be honest about where I am. This is what's being called for. Yeah, I'm getting married, but let me tell you who I am. Regardless of what the reactions may be, you know, and recognizing that no one can make you feel other than what you allow yourself to feel. And I'm not saying it's right to tell your husband I'm going to sleep with other men or whatever, but it's definitely right to establish truthful and honest contracts in the very beginning. You know, I can tell a woman in the beginning, yeah, 10 years from now, why would I even look at you the same? You're not going to even look the same. So how could I look at you the same if you don't look the same? You know, now that may be for better. It may be for worse, but I'm not going to see you in the same light that I see you in today. But if you allow your mind to react to that in the negative, oh, you're not going to be attracted to me. Didn't say that. Just said, I'm not going to look at you the same. You ain't going to look at me the same. You know, so yeah, it's that truthful contract. Yeah, Antonio, I see you in there.
Anytime ready.
Yeah, Antonio. He must be paying. He's drawing a picture or something. He's doing his basket thing. He done snuck off to go draw something. Yeah.
Even then, though, doesn't that start to? I'm going back to what you were saying. Like, some people want to fit in. Like they don't want to be ostracized. And if I say a statement like that, I'm not going to just sleep with you, right? Or I'm not just going to do it. Or I'm not going to look at you the same. Then that starts the byproduct of that would start to now be either people doing a lot of plastic surgery, trying to crystallize themselves in a form or a shape so somebody does keep looking at them the same, or where now people start to lie to one another, because I don't want to hurt the person that I'm supposedly supposed to love, or and I don't want them to be the cause of my, if I don't acknowledge this, and it's going to ultimately bring them to a bad place. I don't want to do that because I've been told since I was little, if you don't have anything nice to say, then you shouldn't say anything at all. And me holding on to that now, right? But then ultimately dying inside because I know that there's more to this, life. There's more to this relationship. There's more to it. And then all of a sudden, maybe one coming into a midlife crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's real, and a lot of that comes from not living a mindful sort of life. You're living your life solely based off of your emotions, right? So when you're living mindfully, you recognize yourself as a mindful act. I was created from the mind. So if I was created from the mind and mindfully and deliberately, then I can embrace myself for whatever strengths that I have, whatever weaknesses that I have. And if there's an inner voice that begins to tell me something else, which we all have that inner voice, of course, I can pause for a second. I can take that deep breath and kind of be more gentle. Do I need the Botox? Do I need this? Do I need that? I can show myself love by taking care of my mind and then taking care of my spirit and then taking care of my body, and recognizing that, like you said, the crystallizing is important, but do I have more love to give to myself? If I don't have any more love to give to myself, then yeah, maybe I need to go get plastic surgery, right? Mm-hmm. But if I have some more love left over, why would I go do that? I haven't exhausted how willing I can be to embrace myself, how willing I can be to embrace others. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like everything about yourself. I think that's part of the problem we run into nowadays with a lot of self-help. Look in the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful, you're gorgeous. I saw a magazine cover the other day. I'm trying to remember what magazine. I feel like it was Cosmopolitan. And it had this obese woman on the cover saying she's hot or she's beautiful. And it's like, nah, that's not beautiful. Come on, like that's not beautiful. That's not, obesity is not beautiful. You know what I mean? Come on, let's not do that. You know what I mean? So I can look in the mirror and be like, oh my goodness, you look a mess. But it doesn't mean that I can't still love myself. I don't have to like how I look to love how I look even. It's just like with your family. Some family you love, but you don't like them, but you love them. But, we wasn't family. I don't think I'd be around you, So we should always work to change the things and to grow and evolve as we can. But we have to be sure that we're loving ourselves, because when we don't, those small things begin to weigh on our spirit, which affects the linkage between our spirit and our soul, in a very real way. Just because you felt that you had to like everything and convince yourself into liking everything, as opposed to looking at them as opportunities to grow, and cultivating a more forward and affirmative practice towards the things that we may have that we don't necessarily care for. That's why that concept I had taught some time ago, with the I am, when we read that in the Bible, and I said it actually translates into the Hebrew as I am what I am willing myself into becoming. Mm-hmm. So that's a powerful thing, man. If there's something about me that I don't like, and I'm able to say that I am willing myself into what I will myself into becoming, I'm cool. I could, I can change this through my own personal will. And whatever I can't change, it is what it is. But I understand that I have been mindfully created and made, or at least created. Created. I may have been made out of mindlessness, and that's part of the problem. But my original creation was done mindfully. You know.
What you just made me think of with people going through the world, though, like you saying, like this is beautiful, but it almost, in a sense, is what people carry is that guilt of not wanting to offend anybody, and then not wanting to offend anybody now opens up a can of worms of, like, I was talking to a dietitian the other day. It was like, there's no such thing as good or bad food. All of it is great, because if you start to label the food, then you label yourself, not holding yourself to any standard. So then now what everybody else starts to do around is, well, maybe I'm a jerk if I start to say that's bad, or if I start to label something as that's good, then now I'm going to be the one that's out of place because I'm offending somebody. And now I can't offend them.
I agree, though. I actually agree with that statement, right? Because, you know, bread doesn't do me well. So I could say, well, bread is bad, but for some, bread is great. They need that fiber. You know what I mean? Black quinoa. Some people don't like to eat black quinoa because they get those little, you know, little pellets in the pellets, you know.
The scat.
Yeah, and the scat. Yeah, they get buckshot all in their scat. But it works great for my system. You know what I mean? So I think there is a truism to that. Now, we have to also look at what will be considered food, though. You know what I mean? Like, I don't consider Skittles food. You know what I mean? So if something is food, then yeah, I think it can all serve a purpose for different things. You know, my grandfather used to put Coca-Cola on a car battery contacts to clean the acid off of them. You know what I mean? Now we wasn't allowed to drink it. We didn't have no Coca-Cola, but I remember him pouring it on the batteries. So I guess it was good for something. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I sort of agree with that. But also the idea of like, well, I don't want to offend anybody. Well, don't attack anybody. You know, an offense is an attack. When you talk about I'm going on the offensive, that's a militaristic term. So if you know that you're waging a military offense, most of the time the other person is aware that we are now engaged in battle. So if that has not been the contract, then that's not what I'm doing. You know, like when you talk to people sometimes and you point something out and they say, well, in my defense, why are you defending yourself? You only have to defend yourself from an attack. I didn't attack you. I just said something. You know, or it's like when you go to jail, not jail, you go to court and they say, who's a defendant? Well, I'm not a defendant. I'm here, but I only, you know what I'm saying? I'm not defending anything because first we haven't even, let's say for instance, I go to traffic court. I get a ticket for speeding in Wyoming or something. I get a summons, right? I know I wasn't driving in Wyoming, you know, and I go to court and they say, well, you're the I'm not the defendant because we haven't even established if I'm the one who's actually in this battle. Yeah, I only just showed up to tell you that I'm not fighting you. So therefore I have no need to defend myself from you. You know, so I would say like when we have that fear of being offensive or whatever, we have to think about first, well, are we attacking? You know, are we going on the offensive? Or even when we decide to be defensive, did someone engage in militaristic warfare with me for me now to have to defend? And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be no. It's just a belief that we're cultivating. And it's that belief then begins to sculpt every sentence that we say after that, which just makes things worse and worse. Instead of dealing with our emotions or the belief of a certain emotion in a positive way and thinking clearly, we create more difficult, intense situations because we haven't moderated our emotions. And then we learn to use certain words of power. You know, I feel attacked. I'm offended. I feel that's abusive. That's phobic, whatever you want to throw in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But again, if I'm not engaged in battle with you, nah, it ain't none of that. It ain't none of that. Just be talking. Now, if you want to ignore me, feel free. You ain't gotta pay attention to me. You know. But if there's any battle or war that's in your mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna close this down. This was supposed to be 30 minutes. But this is good though. You know, this is a good first run. You know, peace to all of y'all who showed up. I didn't do much sharing anything because I didn't want to do that, and then I don't know, it didn't work or something. so this is a good. I think we covered some good ground, man, in terms of emotions, and I would just say, you know, in closing out that, you know, be the person that others look to as someone who can remain or does remain calm in stressful situations. You know, let that be your affirmation, and you will always deal with your emotions in a positive manner. And like I said, regardless of anyone else, if they're regardless if they're feeling the emotion or not, or the feeling or not, excuse me, it's okay for you to stay calm and work through your feelings, because working through your feelings is working through your thoughts. You know, so regardless if you're the only one that's feeling it, it's perfectly fine and clear as long as you know you're thinking clearly, and you're situating and rooting yourself in a space where it's easier for you to calm down. And you tell yourself that every day I am finding it easier to calm down. Every day I'm gaining more control over how I channel my emotions. Every day I am finding channeling and controlling my emotions and moderating them to become easier and easier. You know, let that be your mantra. 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 Let that be your mantra.